Pasha Paroh Y Net 7. Thank you for tuning. The replay. Back with me again today, Trish McCabe, the infamous.
Hi. Yeah.
So Trish, we had an amazing conversation on conversations from the School of the Hard Knocks last week, earlier this week. And we were talking about the devil in the details.
Yes. And shenanigans.
And shenanigans. The way you say that, man, it's just got such a beat to it. Like, definitely, you need to make a song. So, all right. So we popped out the tarot card and everything. So
I love that.
And we reviewed that. And give us a brief recap of, what you gained, what we hope the people gain from your perspective when we reviewed the devils in the details. Like, it was really amazing. Go back, everybody, and check out on Trish McCabe's Facebook or Conversations from the School of Hard Knocks, Trish McCabe on YouTube, and catch that video if you haven't already. Go ahead, Trish, take it away.
Well, I feel like I watched it and I had talked entirely too much. And I'm not, speaking negatively about myself. I just would have liked to have heard a little bit more about what you had to say. And just now you showed the card, and I would like to hear more about the card and how you use the card to understand these things. I would like to hear about that. I would like to learn more about that.
Awesome. So the energy is really what we're dealing with on a subatomic quantum physics level. You know what I'm saying?
Love it.
So what the cards do for me, because like you, we're really good at helping understanding others, right? From our perspective, with the tools that we've been given, the way we view things, the truth, the equation, however you want to map that out for everybody. That's different. Everybody's different, and we all have different skills that we're utilizing to help people. So for me, what it was is the card enables me to help receive the story and tell this and use that intuition. It's just a tool. So because the energy is combined, like when the energy is flowing, it'll like attracts like, so the same frequency, the card pops out that's associated with whatever energy needs to, is in that subconscious ether going on there and stuff like that. You have cards too, right? But yours are not tarot. Cards. Yes. Tell me about that.
Hold that thought. Let me grab it. I'll grab it.
Sure.
There are several companies that make these cards, but this is my book that I refer to, and it's wonderful. A friend gave this to me many years, I would say 25 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was the beginning of me understanding animals and the messages. When you see one, they're actually messengers from the universe, and breaking down what they mean, that kind of thing. So it's just a different, it's a different, from what I gather with the tarot cards is they're metaphors, and to understand metaphors and their meanings and everything, which is kind of interesting, the devil's in the details of when you get into the details.
Exactly.
It'll help you understand the details of that. Everything in your life is a message of some sort. So the cards help you discern what those are.
Right. And I think that combination of the person maybe that if you're reading for someone else, right? The combination of their energy and the cards, because when we do this right, if we're doing it for someone else, we're neutral. and it just passes through us, and then we can interpret. And I like your use of the word metaphor, because that builds on the interpretation, and it's really manifested by the reader, right? In combination with what that I like to have a conversation with the people when I'm doing it. And then that builds the energy in the story, and things become apparent because that card comes out. The same way you said the animals mean certain things
Yeah.
to the interpretation. The same way when you see 333, 444 on the clock, 1111, that means certain things. So we're really dealing with the same energetic truth, right? And we're just utilizing different tools. Some people only focus on the clock, you know?
Oh, okay. Now, that makes me, because I was looking at the ending, we were talking about where we might go on this podcast. So,
negotiate the contract. But first, let's recap on the devil in the details.
Yes. Let me just see. You said something and it just went away. I can't, we covered so much. So basically the basis of this whole thing is, it's important to understand the details of everything that's going on around you. Because that's how you know what's really going on.
Exactly. It sounds too simple.
It sounds so simple, but if you're not paying attention to the details, and I mean everything, that's why they say it's so important to be present.
I like.
So that you can stop and be mindful of the details, what's happening, what's going on around you. And then also it gives you an opportunity to check in with your intuition, which I think is huge. And so every detail has a message, it's trying to, it's enables us to get clarity. The point to talking about this is to get clarity at all times, and to be mindful as to whether you're clear about what's happening or not.
Yeah, because there's definitely consequences. Well, there's pros and cons, like everything in life. It's a gift and a curse. So love
that.
Last time I used the card, I got the green screen. The card had a green alligator as a devil, and it was just a hole in the middle of the card. So I switched up the card so we could get a better image of the devil card. And I got this one this time from another deck that I have. And what we were talking about as far as the card goes is the devil card has positive associations, and that's like will, like your will, persistence, commitment, permanence. And then on the negative side, it has which is the most prominent associations of the card, is weakness of a body. And we talked about how that could be the individual body, the household body, the community body, and keep staircasing it up, and you got the whole nation, you know what I mean, as a body, or a corporation as a body. And it also dealt with entrapment, attachment, lust, greed, ignorance, anger, and all of our bondage to material things, right? And we came up, I think a powerful thing that we came up was, you have a word that you use in this when you say adhere, you're adhering to it. And we discovered that if we make adhere, right, if we make the behavior, because you say adhering to the behavior. So if we make the behavior, or categorize the behaviors as a material manifestation of the thoughts or the disorder or the dis-ease, right, then we have it falls right into the devil card, because our bondage to all things material, the behavior is material then, and you're adhering to that, and that's what we're manifesting in the construct of reality.
Yes.
And if you see on this card, I'll turn it over to you after I plug this for you. You see the little puppet strings on the little person down there in the corner. So that could be us, or it could be a person we're even controlling, right? but this is the devil in the details. This is a great illustration of why it's important to, like you said, recognize, be aware of, acknowledge the details and everything. And I'm a fan of saying it's infinity. You got to look at the whole infinity, because if not, this is what's going on, or this could be you taking control of your life back and you controlling it. Go ahead, let me hear.
With this, yeah, I mean, what really kind of one of the big things is what you said, everything is a blessing and a curse, meaning the duality of things. There's positive and negative. Traits to all things, aspects to all things. And it makes me think of something that we talked about in a previous podcast as an example of a girl that was overweight and picked on for being overweight. And this is where transmutation comes in. She transmuted that truth and alchemized it into power. How could she use her weight to her advantage? And this is kind of getting away, but it just, I had to say it because I think it's just a really powerful thing when you're wanting to manifest things. And it's kind of like what Eckhart Tolle says is, always work with what's going on. Act as though you chose it. Or if you decided to choose it, how would you use it to your benefit? So coming back to the blessing and the curse of all things. And when you realize that truth, suddenly what used to be a negative is positive. I hope I'm not getting too far off of
No,
the subject.
It's absolutely in line. It goes back to, let me throw it back up there for you. For the people, the devil card, you took the details, or she took the details, she paid attention to them, and she felt them all along, but she was feeling them in a negative light. She reversed the roles, and she controlled those details and used it to her advantage. And she became a great athlete, right?
Yes. I forget her name, but yeah, she became very successful. And this is, goes into turning your pain into gain, turning your life experience into wisdom. That's why I shared a meme the other day about grace. Grace is that truth that your mistakes now become, how did they put it? Your mistakes, I should look at, instead of shame, your mistakes become empowerment.
Right.
And a tool for better navigating your life instead of shame.
Yeah.
Something you're ashamed about, you can learn from it and use it to propel yourself in a positive direction.
Yeah, that's a great addition. I'm a fan of advising that what people tend to think is their imperfections is actually what makes them great. Yes. And that's exactly what you just covered in a few different examples there. That's amazing and refreshing too. So the last video, like we said, the title was the devil's in the details. Now we like to build upon stuff. We've been building, like the Sears Tower here. So we have, if you guys want to go back split between our two channels, we got the power of words. And I'm mentioning these because I really think they build up to where we're at now with negotiate the contract. So we got the power of words. We got life isn't fair, or is it? Then, like we showed the devil card, or invoking or evoking. I mean, who's in control? Who's possessing? What are you possessing? You know what I'm saying? And the lie of the label. Whoa.
That one's a big one.
Whoa.
Which I'm going to be expounding on that one in my next podcast. But yes, and then also, what do the visionaries have that we don't have?
Yes.
And that's really huge, because that was based off of your podcast about the graveyard of unfulfilled dreams.
Correct.
You go to the graveyard, and many people didn't do with their life what they really wanted to do. And why?
Yeah.
Where was their thinking?
It wasn't in the details.
That was in the details. Limitations, a limited thinking and limited beliefs that hinder what you will do. And in that real brief, the stupid girl, and
Right.
me realizing that wasn't true, that I wasn't stupid. And what is stupid? Again, the devil's in the details, and somebody calls you stupid. But yes, what's great about all of these podcasts we've done on yours and on mine is we're showing everything is interconnected.
And I like how okay, so let's go back to your example with the title they gave you in school. And people like, everybody gets it, so the title they gave, or the way they treated the lady, when she was young, she was a young lady before she flipped the script on them, became the athlete, right? So
Yeah.
What that was is perfectly how we align to this: negotiate the contract, because both of you and many millions of other people out there that's going through the transformation had to negotiate that contract with themselves. And we got to get the etymology out there on why that's 7. So contract was, as a verb, it means to make an agreement or contract, of course. And then second, it is draw together, combine, make an agreement. So think about that. Like whatever you focus on, you become, right? Or like whatever you eat, you become. You are what you eat. So whatever we allow and accept and put into our physical or
internalize.
Yeah, okay, whatever we internalize, we become. So once all that got into your system, and it started to live there, and it took up root, and it grew, and it expanded in you, and it became you.
It
Until
affects every decision you make in your life based on that belief, which is a limiting belief. We have a lot of limited beliefs in society. At some point, I should write that down. Yes. I really want to go over that one too, because it's just huge. So many limited beliefs.
So that grew and became you. And all of us have had something that done that to us until we renegotiated the contract.
Yes. And really what's happening when that happens, when somebody tells you something about yourself and you're little, they become insecurities that become an internal dialogue that's going on in the background of your subconscious, and your subconscious is constantly, going around and around.
Yeah.
That limit you. If you internalize these things and you believe them, you'll act on those beliefs, or not act. It will affect your actions, which will hinder your ability to manifest what you want.
Perfect segue. So what I have here is I got a little five different types of contracts, right? And you got the bill of sale. So think about what you were.
Bill of sale, okay.
So think about what you were just saying, because that's example of someone selling you on something, selling people on something. So a bill of sale is agreement between two entities or more, right? That states who owns a piece of personal property, right? What is it, when it was sold, how much it's worth, and who sold it. So
which ties into the podcast about possession.
Exactly. And the titles and the all of that energy and everything bound in that title. Like you said, it affects every life, because it's about a piece of personal property, which we were talking about last time, was the behavior can be considered material.
Yes. And that goes back to the monk, and I can never say his name right, but I share it from time to time because it is absolutely essential for people to understand the law of action. The law of action. Your actions are the very foundation for which you stand upon. They're the only thing you actually own that's yours.
Yes.
And we don't live out of that principle. We don't live out of that law.
Yeah.
We have a blame, victim mentality, projection, gaslighting way that does not allow us to be held accountable for our own lives and the outcomes of our decisions.
I agree with that as a whole. And
Yeah.
and that's why we're doing this work, because it's so simple what we got to change, but it's so much work to adhere to it. You know what I'm saying? And get it to spread across the population with everybody in different states of mind. You know, like the other one here, licensing contract. You know, you got people saying, well, if you want to be this is how you need to act, which is like having a license for something. You know what I mean? These are your rules and regulations to what this has got to be. And then you got people with different versions of what they think it should be. So you got little fractions within the construct. It's so confusing. You never know what to expect from people. We need a standard.
Yeah. So, all right, you've got 5 points on a contract. Right now, we're talking about the bill of sale.
The bill of sale, licensing contract,
license,
employment agreement, non-disclosure agreement, and promissory note.
Okay, so we've got the bill of sale, licensing contract.
Mm-hmm.
What's number 3?
Employment agreement.
Employment agreement.
So think about that. How does that ring a bell to you when you talk about relationships and that whole controlling fraction that you're well versed in, you know, where you're basically, it's basically like more like a job than it is like a relationship.
Okay, here's where I stand on that, and I will probably do another podcast on that. Every relationship, like, it goes to that saying, he or she wears the pants, is basically saying one person doesn't have a voice. If your relationship is not symbiotic, and what does symbiotic mean? It means both people are getting their needs met. If both people are not getting their needs met, be it a romantic or employment situation, whatever, family situation, you can bet the other person is being taken advantage of because they don't have a voice. It's not equal standing. It's unequal.
So that is until they renegotiate the contract, pay attention to the details, realize they're on the puppet strings like the card, and renegotiate the terms of the agreement or tear it up, right?
Because if you're not allowed to say what's in it for me, why would you even bother? Why bother taking a job where your needs aren't going to get met? Why bother getting into a relationship where your needs aren't going to get met? You're not allowed to express what you need. Or you're not allowed to express a need isn't getting met. Why would you do that? Why would you go to something that, you know, I saw a friend share a post today saying something about the truck drivers and everything. No more accepting peanuts. And the value, and we talked about this in the last one, the value of our lives, when we're realizing the truth that we're not paying for everything with money, we're paying for everything with a chunk of our life.
Time, the one thing
which
you
is the
can't get
most
back.
valuable thing you can have. So clarity.
Yeah. But, and then that goes into that falls right into the licensing contract of, well, if you want to be in this position, then you got to be like this. What's your you got to be glad you have a job.
Right.
You know, so
so that, and when they bring that to, it negates the truth that they wouldn't have a company without the people.
Absolutely.
You can't have a company without the people to work in the company, but yet we treat them like they're somehow secondary. When what is the number one thing with this whole pandemic that people are worried about? The economy. So what does that mean? Okay, we want to keep the economy afloat. What is that going to take? That's going to take the workers to continue to be working, but we're not really saying that. Because if in fact, and we were talking about this before, the farmers, saying, oh, the farm workers are lucky to have a job. No, the farmers are lucky to have the farm workers to pick the fruits and vegetables, to provide the farmer with the ability to have a farm.
Yes.
But we speak out of the opposite, like giving away our power when we say, oh, we're lucky to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
No, that is not a symbiotic situation. It should be a win-win. And if it's not, why?
And also, so not only do you need the people to be the workers, right, to produce, but you also need the people to consume on the opposite side. So if there's any disconnect or disharmony and people decide not to buy or purchase, right, hopefully it's for the right reason, not just because, oh, we don't want this person to be successful because they're going to change America, you know what I mean? Like, or something like that for a good thing.
Absolutely.
But go ahead, spill on that.
Absolutely. Because the thing is, and my boyfriend and I talk about this, he's brought it up. He goes, no, people can't complain. People are the ones that create the markets. We're the ones. You can't have a company if you don't have a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
You need the people to buy the product for the company to survive. So again, we're coming back to what really actually has value.
Yeah.
And people are treated like they're secondary, and the companies are the ones with the power. Because if everybody quit their job right now because they're sick and tired of working for peanuts, what would happen? Everybody knows what happened. Boom. So who's the one really running the show now? Who are the people running the game?
Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing with like we touched on here and there, citizenship, government, are you, is what we think is the government, or is that some big non-disclosure agreement where everybody's running around saying there's something and they haven't looked into the terms and the details to understand if they are or aren't.
You can't be a governor without the people to govern. If there are no people, there's no need for a governor. You just got to get real about what we're really talking about. Clarification.
Bring the people back.
They need us. I mean, they need the people to govern. That's what their job is, right?
Yes.
So why are we treated? And we pay taxes, and that allows a government to have the funds to do what they need to do to meet the people's needs. It's a symbiotic, or so it should be, situation.
That relationship you were talking about earlier.
Relationship, yeah, but it's not a healthy one at this point. We need some revisions for sure. Anyways.
Perfect. And that ties us into the last one, promissory note. Because it starts with the promise starts with the promise to ourselves, who we are, what we're gonna accept, our, like, I guess that's boundaries, you know what I mean? What our goals are, etc., etc., etc. So we got to start with a promissory note to ourselves. And then if you go join a company, make sure their promissory note is upheld, because they give you this nice spiel of how they're, best place for employees to be in this state or the country. Well, make sure that the culture, when you get there, reflects that. Do your part to make sure that the culture reflects that. Don't just sit there and acquiesce and don't say nothing. And yeah, you might be the only one to say something and they might get rid of you, but you stood up for what was right.
And this comes down to actions speak louder than words. We throw that around, but really we need to revisit that truth.
Yes.
As a whole, actions are everything. It goes back to what he was saying. The monk was saying, it's the very foundation for which you stand upon. We haven't been living out of that truth.
Yeah.
Not really. And this is where labels, this is so important. This is the connection with the labels and labeling. When you label somebody something, and they're in this bracket like the Democrats, that is a broad stroke, a broad statement, because not all Democrats are the same.
Blanket statement.
Blanket statements. And And so when they're talking about one person, they'll say this person behaved this way. They'll put them in the box, all Democrats are that way, which is fact, that's just not true.
Right.
Instead of addressing that individual's behavior, and that is harmful. The behavior, we need to really start talking about behaviors, because that's the key to all of this, where these behaviors and why we adhere to them. What's up with that? But as long as we have labels and titles, we can pigeonhole and generalize people and never get to the meat, which is the details of what we're talking about.
And that would be justice. And that is the card for the day.
Oh, nice.
So with the justice card, it stands for, on the positive side, right? It stands for fairness, impartiality, balance, and equity, which is paramount. You got to have the balance, like you said, in everything. True justice is possible through purity of spirit. So you got to get that invoking and evoking under control. You got to make sure the devil ain't got the puppet strings on you. And if you need to make sure you got the puppet strings on the right people. Because I think, let me hear what you got to say about this real quick, and we'll continue with this meaning or this energy here in a moment. But I think it's equally as damaging to have the devil have the puppet strings on you as it would be for you to have the puppet strings on the wrong people. What do you think about that?
That goes back to the symbiotic, that a healthy relationship should be symbiotic. Nobody's wearing the pants. It's an exchange, an even exchange. I'm going to do this and you're going to do this. And both parties get their needs met. Otherwise, why have a relationship of any sort if you're not going to get anything out of it? You're just giving away everything and you get peanuts. You get, $14 an hour in the event of a pandemic, but I digress.
Yeah. And then you got the people that are so used to being controlled, right? That they expect you to control them as the definition of the relationship. Whereas that's the puppet strings. So if you got the puppet strings on the wrong person, you're gonna always have to now you're gonna become what you weren't, right? Which may be that thing that we shouldn't be, to fill that void in a relationship. Versus if you had the puppet strings, not so much that you control them, but just that you got that connection. Let's make that the metaphor now. That it's just you're connected with the right people. You guys are thinking the same, and you don't even have to
on the same page.
Yes, I think that is so undervalued right now. Tell me more, Trish.
Well, it goes back to the contracts when you're a child. The things that you agree or go along with that are told about yourself. And if you're told that you need to do this to make someone else, mom happy, you need to do this to make the teacher happy, you need to do this to make your brother happy, you are a slave. People pleasing. But it really is, people go along with it because that's just what they're used to. That's the way we've been operating in society, out of this idea, this singular truth to me, and I might be oversimplifying it, but the singular truth on the table across the board to me is nobody has the right to tell you what you're worth, what your value is, and what your station is in life.
Right.
That is something only we can do.
The pursuit of happiness.
And it makes us slaves because, then it's like your life is hinged upon what somebody else does, your happiness, everything else. It takes the power away from you. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier. Accountability is so important. When you say justice, accountability is very, very important where justice is concerned. If you're not holding someone accountable, justice isn't happening. It's not happening. If their behavior is not being addressed, and then this goes back to the labels, and how toxic it is to, tell somebody, how do I put it? We talked about this before, the narcissist, And that leaves it open for interpretation. And so you're not talking about the behavior, and which they're starting to move in that direction. Once you talk about the behavior, then you also can't let the labels happen of he's a jerk. No, he's not a jerk. That's his behavior.
Mhm.
Okay, so why is he behaving this way? And all things aside, he still has to be accountable for that behavior. That's what justice is, saying, you know, no, this is unacceptable behavior, and it has to end, or you're fired, or we can't be together, or I can't, even though you're my family member, I'm sorry, I can't allow you to treat me this way. This behavior you're adhering to is harmful to me.
Yes.
And if you want to, you know, be in my life, you're going to have to apology, and then you have to change your behavior. And if those two aren't happening, then it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
not
that,
going to.
and that's just like the justice card there. You got two different, I would say, versions or outcomes, two different minds. You know, one is not smiling, one kind of has a smile, even though it's not, it could be a sinister smile, but it's still a smile or smirk. One is very more serious. One's looking at the other one's looking away. You know, so all of that is based on, like you said, taking responsibility. Your actions is going to determine whether you're in the blue sky background or the darkness, you know, and that feeling of dark energy and everything on the bottom there. So every action has its consequences. That's what you're talking about, continuing with the card's meaning. And it's important to think about our choices. A time comes, like you said, when responsibilities must be accepted and accounts settled, you know?
Responsibility, very important.
Yeah. Now there's a
Nobody
negative
else can
side.
be responsible for your behavior. They'll say, well, you made me do this. No,
Right.
I didn't. Yeah. And I'm not judgment, no judgment. Again, people here, I've done all these things. This is observation. This is discernment.
Mhm.
What we're doing here is we don't want to have to adhere to these behaviors just to survive in this unclear way that we've been operating in society, where it's looking like something that it isn't. Under the guise, under the label, under the blanket statement.
So in tune, you're so in tune, Trish, because you're tying right into the negative side of the card, which is like the card indicates a bias, injustice, or playing the role of a victim, just like or a perpetrator, just like your gaslighting situations, your narcissistic behavior that you talk about. And this is illusion. This is exact words here. This is illusion. Stop blaming other people if things go wrong and take control of our own lives. Keep an eye on your actions and make sure you don't do anything you may regret afterwards, like not pay attention to the details and gets swooped up into something that you didn't want to be a part of and stay there after you find out the details and just sit there and stay there. You know what I mean? So
yes, absolutely. And something just came to me, and my mind is always going. I've been thinking about these things, especially since the pandemic hit, on such a deeper level, because I feel, as horrible as the pandemic it is, there's also the gifts that we've gotten out of it, where I feel that it's forcing us to look at these truths. We're not able to look the other way and sweep it under the rug anymore. How we got here. We can blame 10 ways from Sunday.
Yeah.
That's not the real conversation. Everyone has to take responsibility for where we are. The blaming suggests that we're not interconnected, and we are. If we didn't need one another, why are we always trying to get people to do this and get people to do that? Because, guess what? You know, Walmart or any other company, you need us. Why are you acting like you don't? Why are we agreeing to that? We need each other. Yes, we need a job, but you need workers. So quit trying to act like you don't. And we're lucky. No, it's dehumanizing.
And then
we
gotta
go
get
back to, yes.
And you gotta get the world on the same page, because if you see what happened is once America started to say that very thing, they said, oh, okay, you know what? China, we got jobs for all of you. You know what I'm saying? And then they, instead of paying an American $30 an hour, they get the same work for $2 a day over at China. And those numbers may not be exact. Don't come at me, people, about that. You get the idea of the example. So how do we, I have an idea, but let me hear how you think we would overcome that in the scenario.
Well, bottom line, we're negating the truth that human life is the most valuable thing there is. Here we're getting vaccines and not getting vaccines based on whichever preference people choose. That's their prerogative. But either way, if we're going to talk about humanity and caring about one another, how are we going to do that while we have companies that are allowed to go to other countries and exploit other people and take their time, their precious time they have on this planet, away from them for pennies?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, makes me mad. That is the truth. The truth is what we're told is valuable and what is actually valuable.
Yeah, I just did a post earlier today that was basically saying, you know, with especially prelude to the infrastructure bill on the United States table. You know, I'm like, why are we in the mindset of rebuilding the United States? America needs more American cities. Because see, I think it's a mindset. And what we need to do is we need to get out of, because the whole United States is a codependency. It's like a bad relationship.
Oh, I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, granted, I'm talking about the difference between the United States and America. So now if we hop into the American mindset, we build our own cities that support itself, you know? And then that can expand and eventually, right, eventually if we do that right long enough, we can replace what we call the United States with America. That may go over some people's heads, but I know, but you know, build with us here. We can replace that broken system or the broken infrastructure with something that we know is going to work. Because when they built that,
it got too big to manage. It's become too big to manage. You know, when we talk about, I think you and I have talked about this, and we'll be doing this, you, me, and Opal, talking about this particular of when you're talking about, you know, the weather in New York versus the weather in Texas versus the weather in California. You cannot have the same conversation. It's not going to be the same conversation, but we're talking about it that way. We're, you know, we talk about, again, it goes to the broad stroking of things that doesn't allow to address individual situations.
mm-hmm.
What's going on in New York is different than what's going on in California. There's different regions, and we're trying to have our federal government. We've been too focused on the federal government and not enough on the state, the county, and the city, our local situations. And because of that, many people are still in seat, our local officials, by default.
Yeah, like California.
What's going on, especially in California. Woo. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so
they're serving life sentences out there.
I'm in California. Why am I talking about what's going on in Texas? I'm in California. I want to talk about what's going on here. So people are talking about various topics that in a broad sort of way, you know, that doesn't address locally what's going on. I have to come up with a better.
That was perfect, Trish, because you're tying right into the negative applications of the card and the word justice and everything itself, because that's speaking about the indication of the biases that exist due to the difference in localities and playing of the role of the victim. Like, you know, someone, I remember seeing a post that said, you know, California don't know what winter is, as far as it's talking about the electric company, right? And they were like, those electric bills in the wintertime for California, this because we in Chicago. And I was like, but in
Exactly.
Chicago in the summer, you don't have the electric bill that California got because they're running the AC. So there's that,
Yeah.
there's that, what that where's that? There's that justice card keeping everything balanced. So when we look at complaining about others, it's that golden rule of, hold on, let me get back on the screen here. I'm working on these keys. It's that golden rule of every time you point a finger at somebody, there's 3 pointing back at you.
And it negates the truth of we're all responsible for what's happening.
Yes. Yes.
And if that wasn't true, and we've talked about this before, something happened in China. One person got the illness, gave it to everybody else, and then next, and here we are. It's across the whole world. So when we speak in the way we've been speaking, it's negating that truth that we're sharing this planet. What one person does affects the whole.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you this question, Trish. Why is it so easy for us to accept and perpetuate the spreading of negativity like that? And we and why can't we get a fire raging on something positive to go around the world like that?
Okay, you know why?
Yes.
People have a lot of confusion about what negativity is and what positivity is.
I like it. Good
There's
answer.
a lot of confusion on that end. People say, think positive thoughts. Honey, if you're in a house where your spouse is beating you and you have no way out, he will probably kill you if you try to leave. It ain't gonna work. We need to revisit positive and negative.
Yeah,
what
definitely.
they actually mean. Get some clarity, because they're used very generalizing. Once again, the broad stroking.
Blanket statements.
What's that?
I said the blanket statements.
The blanket statements. And we have so much of that where we look like we're having a conversation and we're not. We're just broadly talking about it. And that happens when things get too big. When, you know, it gets so convoluted. There's just, it's very difficult to get clarity when it's gotten to be to where it is now. So these broad stroking of things. Now what's happening is people are starting to dig in like we are and say, what's really going on here? How did we get here?
Yeah.
How did we get here?
Yeah, because you can't you can't actually say that. I don't know one contract that exists that you could have a billion people feel like they're equal in it. You know what I'm saying? You have, it's like I think what they need to do, it exists, but once you start compartmentalizing everything and you create these biases, it becomes fuzzy. So we need to go back to that original contract, right? That said everybody's human and we're all breathing air. Like you said, we're sharing this planet, and just start over. And then we got to we got to do something about this exchange for work, you know, to pay bills for shit that's free. You know what I mean? I'm not one of those saying like we should be communists or so, but that's basically where it is. We're like socialists right now anyway, as far as the way the socialist communists a little bit. But what I'm getting at is the earth or the world or whatever we're on, the flat, round, whatever, produces everything for free. You know what I'm saying? Then you have the haves and the have-nots, and all that exists due to something that's a fairy tale. You know what I mean? So
three finger thing that you said, to swing this back around. When we say that the three finger thing is, the reason that's true is we speak from I and not we. We're all mirrors to one another. And we are connected. And you know, it's like we are really sharing this world, but we're acting like we're not. And the whole, I'm just trying to think of how to say it. Just we complain about our leaders, for instance, but they're a reflection of ourselves.
Thank you.
They really are. We voted them in, right? So yet we blame, they're the scapegoat, but we negate the truth that we voted for them. So again, the scapegoat thing doesn't allow justice to be. Justice can't be had if you can blame somebody. If the blaming is allowed, the accountability never happens, and we have shenanigans.
Shenanigans. So
It just all comes back to shenanigans.
So look, that totally like validates the 5 contracts we just went over. You know, you're gonna have the politician up there. He's gonna present a bill of sale to the people, sell the people on something. That's why when they get in there, they're gonna call it, they're gonna tell the public it's a law. It's really a bill. People don't connect it. You know what I'm saying? House bill this. And that comes with a whole list of things that they sold the people on, some things that they didn't know was in the fine print, like gratuity. And then you got to have an employment contract. The people employ them, like you said, vote them and accept them, largely based on a licensing contract. Are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? If you're one of us, we're under the same licensing. It don't matter what you say, you're in. You know what I mean? There's going to be non-disclosure agreements in the background of everything that they're not telling the people. And then it's all about a promissory note that the people gave to themselves that wasn't really promising themselves anything. And that ties into the politician presenting a bill of sale, which everybody bought into. So we'll go through that whole shenanigans, as you say,
Well,
but why not invest in the right people?
Here's the shenanigan: law and order. Ooh. The idea of law and order. And law does not mean right. You can have a law that's just plain out wrong, but it looks like it's law and order. No. You say, well, it's the law.
United States.
It's illegal to do this. I go, that's a problem. If that's legal, we're not talking about legal no more. We're talking about right or wrong. Legal does not make it right. Facts.
Yeah.
That's because it's a law. Look at it. We've had slavery. Slavery's been allowed. Most of our founding fathers owned slaves. While they wrote a document, all men are created equal.
Hey, a lot of people that look like me own slaves too.
And then there's that. But
they don't tell that. They don't tell that part of the story.
And it's everything is a reflection of ourselves, because if we look at every group of nationality, or what do you call it, your race, or just race, to say the word race is racism anyways, but
facts.
That's a whole other, there is no such thing as race. We need to move away from even engaging in those conversations, because if we do, we're segregating just by having them. So there's just
replace the system, replace it all with what it should be instead of what it has become.
Human. We're humans.
Yes.
Every one of us. We're all capable of being toxic.
Yes.
Every single last one of us.
We all have our days.
There is no us and them. There's only us. We, the collective. We're responsible for our world.
So let me ask you this. These politicians come up here, they go and say, I'm running for office. They start throwing millions of dollars at them in their politician campaign fund. Now, I don't care if you voted or not, like the people, I don't care if they vote or not, but why don't we have that same energy? Or let me ask you this, what would it take for our community to realize if we did that to the right people in our community, we would have more Steve Jobs, we would have more Walt Disney's, we would have more whoever you want to put on there?
I have an answer.
Let me hear.
Policies.
Expand on that.
The bar. A lot of people aren't gonna like this, but I've put it on my page and got a lot of backlash for it. Did we or did we not have a president that got caught getting sexual favors in the Oval Office? That happened. And then, of course, he lied about it under oath. which is perjury, which is a felony, a federal crime or whatever.
Depends on who you are,
And he was
right?
acquitted. So that's one thing. But even before that, he was known to be a sexual harasser. He had a record of it back when he was running for governor, you know, and we did not have a bar that disqualifies you. So we're surprised we got another womanizing president like Trump. We never put a bar in place that disallowed that. We did not put a bar in place that says if you have a history of sexual harassment, your candidate is disqualified. We don't have qualifications for these people. They're not clear enough. We need revisions in that. We truly do. So
Yeah.
we didn't do anything when it happened in the Oval Office, for criminy sakes. And we let that slide. And yet we want to make Trump out to be the bad guy. No, what you allow is what will continue. If you do not have a bar in place, anything can happen. And it is.
So see, when we review that licensing contract of the term president, we, I think that a lot of people will one day wake up and realize you can't walk into Walmart and tell them how to do their management. You can, but at the end of the day, they're gonna be like, "This Walmart. You just a customer," and they're gonna one day, when they realize that is really what's at the root of all of that stuff. I think people are gonna start flipping tables. They're gonna start flipping tables, and that's what it's gonna take. But let me
yes, I was in this group, civil rights group, and they were talking about what happened in Georgia and that they were able to pass a law that allows voter suppression. I don't know all the particulars, doesn't matter. And I just said, okay. And he said, well, it's the conservatives, they voted it in. I go, no. Why do we have a governmental structure that allows racism to be voted in?
Because
It
maybe
can't
it's
happen
not our
out of
government.
nowhere if it's not allowed to happen. Why were they even able to vote it in? So the left said, okay, you can vote racism in. That's what happened. Let's talk about what really happened.
Yeah.
Talk about what's really going on. We need policy reform, first and foremost. We need term limitations. We need, if you put a mandate on the table and you as a politician doesn't adhere to them, you're fired. There's no process to, you're fired as if you had a job and you were a CEO for a company. If you're a CEO of a company and you're responsible for the safety of your employees, and you put a rule out that people have to adhere to in terms of safety, and you get caught not adhering to those rules, you're fired. Why is the government treated different? If a CEO got caught getting sexual favors in their office on the job, they'd be fired. Flat out. There's no red tape. Oh, it's another when we hear red tape. No.
But see, that's
red
what they
tape,
play
what
to
does that
their
mean?
that's what they play to their advantage, because look, and when you ask that question of would a CEO get kicked out, I gotta ask the question, would they? Because depending on who discovered, it would be the same thing. They could sweep it under the rug, or like in the instance of the United States, if they drag it out long enough, it don't even matter anymore because he's not in that position and he's gone. So they can just drag it out, and then all of a sudden he only got 6 months left. You know what? Oh well, who cares anymore? Now, this right here though, that's the magic thing. When we look into the devil in the details of the contract, we might find out that what we think is the government is really just another corporation. That would allow us to then start our own. So we can't go in, or we could try, but I think it's going to be a lot of resistance that will lead to them not having to do nothing because they are a company like Walmart, versus us just starting the Walmart we want to replace it. That's the thing about America versus the United States.
I just think at the core of everything, it is, for me, in this, I might be oversimplifying, but I really truly feel that the root of everything is nobody else has the right to tell you what you're worth. what your value is and what your station is in life. That's the facts, Jack. And anything else is imprisonment, period. End of story.
So we say that a different way, Trish. You're agreeing with the fact of what I just said, that we should be able to start our own government, whether that's one big one to sit side by side or your individual governments. Because as long as you're not hurting or hurting other people or injuring other people, you're basically supposed to be free to self-govern and on the pursuit to liberty and happiness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
But, and then even, let's go even further. We already are. We just need to wake up to that truth.
Renegotiate the contract, people.
It's really just coming down to, and that's what's happening, is what has actual value. And that is human life.
Yes.
Hours of our time is immeasurable. We're never going to get back that time. We're never going to. The 40 to 60 hours a week we work is based off of sacrifice. No, I don't want sacrifice. Now, compromise, that's a different thing. I don't want sacrifice. I have to sacrifice 60 hours of my life just to get by. Or even if I did have a house and a mansion, that's not really what success is. It's, and the idea of success. And that's why I put my post on my page. You know, success is living life on your own terms, not the mansion, not what you do for a living, not your title. That's not you. That's not who you are. These things are not your identity. You know,
that brings us to a crossroad, Trish. That brings us to a crossroad because
human value, human value.
Yeah. So let me speak on this, because now you're on the cusp of something. Because I made a promissory note that I hope I fulfill, you know, soon, of starting my own city. You know what I mean? we're gonna start our first American city. Nah, let me start. But so what I wanted to ask you is, we're at the crossroads, because what happens when you setting your own contract, right? Now you have the outside world wanting to infringe upon you because of the result of democracy, mob rule, telling you that you can't be free, or, you know, you can't do this because of this, and everybody else is doing it, so now you need to do it. Normally social influence. Speak on it, Trish.
What goes back to what I said before, a group of people does not supersede the rights of an individual, period. I don't care what you put on the table. And let's go beyond that. What are you doing? Are you valuing human life in the process? Are you valuing and honoring everyone around you and yourself? Well, yourself first, self-love, self-honoring, boundaries, you know, what makes you feel good? What empowers you?
Yes, great questions.
Treatment of ourselves and others is at the core of all of this, how we treat each other and valuing life. Again, the materialism versus humanism.
Yeah. So,
because we're sitting here in the event of a pandemic crying because all these people are dying while we're sending you to work for peanuts so you can barely pay your bills, and they're still shutting your power off because the banks say no, or you know, or foreclosing on your house. And is that humanity? Wait, okay, so we're fighting to give people vaccines to keep them alive, but their quality of life sucks, so why bother?
Well, more people died in the last war. You know, maybe the last war, but definitely the last www.com. You know, they're not going to stop that next time.
And it's a selective thing where we're talking about honoring human life and wanting to keep people safe and all that. But we're only having it selectively. We're not having the whole conversation. We're not discussing all of the elements and variables. We're not doing that. It's only in one area. What good is it to save somebody's life if they're working 60 hours a week, not able to spend time with their children, not able to spend time in the home they're busting their ass to own? That model is broken.
Yeah, and they'll never own it.
Told that that's what success is. No, if you're not happy, you're not successful. I don't care about all the monetary gain and the titles and your accolades. You can't take it with you. Look at John Lennon. Did he take anything with him when he died? No, he didn't. Nobody
So
does.
so that brings a great connection there, because when you mention like the home, for example, you work, it used to be 30 years for a mortgage. I think they're doing 15 now. I don't know.
When you
But
really don't actually own it. Yes, love that.
yeah,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
that's what I had said earlier. You don't actually own it. So now you got the whole back to the illusion, right? And then the role of the perpetrator and then the victim. But see, the thing is, even once we identify the people, the perpetrator of the matter, they're addicted to being the victim, so they still go along with it. So I think you said something, we're not having the conversations. I want to spin that real quick. I think we are having the conversations on our own, many people on many different levels, but
when I say we,
most of us, I got you, but most of us are waiting for the perpetrator to do something about it. Like they're going to magically have a change of heart or something to be like, you know what, guys, we've been doing this to you for so long. We just all of a sudden, we just feel so sorry about it, and we're going to just change it for you, okay? No, that's not going to happen. like you said, in that relationship, the abusive relationship, they're not going to wake up one day and just be like, you know what, what was I thinking? You know what I'm saying?
So I give you 60 hours a week of my life, a chunk of my life, I will never get back for $14 an hour.
Go on.
There's something wrong with that picture, folks. No, your employer does not get to tell you what your value is. Nobody does. Oh, these people and your thing. Oh, they work at McDonald's. They're a loser. Who are you to tell somebody else whether they're a loser or a winner?
Yeah.
What? It makes me think of what Mick Jagger said to the person in the audience that was telling him you need to cut your hair. Why? So I could look like you.
Mm-hmm. I like that, because I that was the one video I had so many people said afterwards. They hit me up like, is everything okay? You seem like you were a little angry with that video. That's the first time you ever seen it. I was like, no, I'm not angry. I was actually serious. People are so used to the customer service, Pasha Paroh. Hi, happy to help you. And when you get something that makes you're serious about, your demeanor changes about it. And I think once everybody gets serious about really wanting change, they're going to do something about it instead of just talking. Like,
Oh, yes. And what if you were angry? What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that?
We have a judgment about anger.
Yeah.
When there are things you damn well better be angry about.
Yeah. I think anger is another.
Not to be angry about things where people are being harmed and abused and being treated like dogs. Well,
absolutely.
And that's not even talking about how dogs are treated. I shouldn't even use that. Dogs are equal to humans anyways, though.
Well, and then we got the whole pandemic of mindset of humans calling themselves the equivalent of female dogs nowadays. So look at that contract, right? Talking about contracts, and you're agreeing to terms, the bill of sale, now it's cool for all the, everybody wants it's a mess. They all want to be called that term as a term of endearment, so it's really sick out there. It's a real illusion, and people adopt it, and then they become addicted, and they got to they get addicted to the victim serum in their body flowing through their bloodstream, and they need more of it. They need another dose. So now it's the next thing of woe is me, instead of let's change the construct. Let's change the reality.
The title does not make the man. The title doesn't make you who you are. It's what you do with it. We talked about this. What is a mother? A loving, caring, nurturing guider, example for the child. And so to say you must love your mother, no, that's not true. That's where the labels and the stigma, the bitch, whatever. That's, again, we're not talking about behaviors. What is a bitch? So, and then there's like, many people think, well, he's a bitch ass, look, he's a badass bitch. if a word can have several meanings, it's dangerous for one thing, but that's not who you are. Well, let's talk about what our identities really are. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier, our actions. That's our foundation. Our actions make us who and what we are, not the title. And that's what needs to be changed.
Trish, I think you might have stumbled onto something there. At least it sparked something in my mind. And when you said, yeah, we talked about the whole, love thy mother, and if
Honor
if
thy
they're
parents.
yeah, and if they're
From the
like
Bible.
if they're treating you like shit your whole life, at some point it makes sense to disregard that contract. But then it made me think that, what if we got to get down into the devil, the details of things, and say, hey, is it maybe that you're only really a mother when you can check off these certain boxes? And if those boxes aren't checked off, then you're not a mother. So then that person, if they had a mother, they would by default, act or play the role of that loving son or daughter, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's that deep in this contract and acceptance of terms and details and promissory notes to each other and all this stuff. Does it get that deep?
You said default. It's an important point in what we're talking about.
Yo, we be doing the thing, Trish.
I would love to know what default means.
Hold up.
I don't know if you have your book, but
you can't say that around me.
Yeah. Where they get the title by default. No, that way we need to change that.
Or
the title has to be earned. It has to be earned if you want the title. It's not just give you, right? And that's across the board.
If they give out titles by default, you know what? I'll take one. Trillionaire, millionaire, billionaire. I'll sign me up for that. Oh, it doesn't work like that? Okay, well, we gotta have this clear across the board, like you said. All right, so default is an offense, crime, or sin. Later, failure. And that was 1250 as the noun. As a verb, it is 1382. So the noun was first, and then they came up with the verb to be lacking. So originally it meant an offense, crime, or sin. Later, failure.
It makes me think about the group that I'm with that's fighting for change. They're called Together We Rise in LA. And they're talked about how people have been so focused, which circles around what we were talking about earlier, so focused on the federal government, the president, and everything else, that the local city officials have been in seat for 20 years by default.
By offense, by crime.
Nobody voted. So when they don't vote, they get it by default. You don't realize that. And they've been in seat for 20 years. So that's why we need term limitations.
Yeah. So
and then the other thing that I think is huge across the board in every aspect of our government is, if you say you're going to do something, you have to give us a by when and a how you're going to get there, an action plan step. That's in layman's terms, not your bills where you got to go to school for 12 years to be a lawyer to even understand. Don't even get me started on that. That's a whole other hour-long conversation at the very least, but
we'll get to
I digress.
it. So look, check out the word offense. It's injury, wrong, annoyance originally. Injury, wrong, annoyance. So that makes sense because it's in default. It's an injury to the original terms of agreements of the contract. It's not there. Or excuse me, I'm backwards with it. When you said they get the title by default, the injury is we didn't hold them up to the terms of the contract, the details that make that title, and we acquiesced to them having it.
Yes.
Kind of like the government. So all right, Trish, I think we gave them enough right now. You got anything else?
I was just going to say that what we were talking about, I looked at the clock and it was 222, and I've been seeing that number for the last 2 days constantly. 22222. I mean, just like more than ever. So hey, that was all I was saying. It was, oh my God, it's 222, which is, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Apparently, I looked it up somewhere around those lines. Total non sequitur, but yeah, just wanted to mention that.
I heard a great breakdown of those numbers, right? And I know we could look them up, 222, 111, 555, and we'll get meanings, right? What was delivered to me recently, like within the last month, it was saying, fuck what we think other people say they mean. What's most important is that whenever we see any of those combinations, it's a signal, it's a sign, like you just said. And then the power is not in going and look up what the numbers meant from some source that's going to be different depending on which source we look up. But what were we just talking about? What was going on in your life at that moment?
That's my point.
Yes. Pay attention to that.
Yes.
And that's cool. That's what it is.
Yes. That's why I was like saying it. I'm like, oh my God, we're getting a confirmation from the divine that we're on the right track. Yeah, that we're saying the important stuff. And it's been very difficult talking about this to people because they think that I'm trying to be a know-it-all, and it's just so I'm not. Yeah, I just want to have these conversations. I just want to talk about what's underneath all this stuff, the layers that got us to where we are. How do we get here?
Yeah. And you hit that, that's one of my, because no, we're not, you know what? We're not know-it-alls. Well, what we are people that put in a lot of time, energy, and work and effort studying, compiling, researching, thinking, cross-referencing, surveying, interviewing, examining, and the list goes on and on and on. Right, therapy and others, being a therapist, so we've done all this for so long that we surpassed the 10,000 hours already. You know what I mean? On our own, we
got a degree in the School of Hard Knocks.
Trish McCabe, School of Hard Knocks, Conversation School of Hard Knocks. So, and that's what's annoying is that's the offense. There you go. We're gonna use the word out of the book. That's the offense, is because we did that, and then so that they can ease it in their mind on why they can continue in their bias. It's gonna be like, what do you think? Oh, you're thinking you're know-it-all. You can't possibly know it all. You're not the authority. All those type of, where you get that from the internet, all those conversations spin out of that same, or all those responses spin out of that same negative view. However, and I'll let you ride this one out. When it's something they want to talk about, they don't have the same interrogation of who you think you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm
talking about what they want to talk about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
all we're really doing is asking the question, how did we get here? We can't get something different if we don't ask that question. Do we want something different? Do we want not different? Let's even go, do we want something better?
How about, do we want something real?
Do we want an outcome that's better than what we're getting?
I don't want better anymore, because better is like, we down here, this is better. I used to want better, but fuck better, man. Fuck better right now. I want to keep it real. Let's go all the way, however far I gotta go. Let's go all the way to keeping it real.
Oh, I love that. Oh, yes. Authenticity. Yes.
Because that's
what are we really talking about? Again, the details.
Yeah. That
keeping
goes back
it real
to that crossroad.
Yes. If we're not allowed to talk about the details, we're not allowed to ask questions, what's up with that?
Or be who you want to be.
And being who I am, I'm a question asker. I always have, but I was told I was Patty the weirdo because I wanted to know why. But why? This doesn't make sense. I don't understand it. I want some clarity. So I know how I can learn and grow and do better and be better for myself and everyone else. Because we do influence one another. We do affect one another. Whether we want to own up to that truth or not, we're sharing this world.
This just came full circle.
If the Martians attacked us, we'd all be Earthlings. Why aren't we living out of that truth right now?
Yeah, this came full circle. I remember one of our earliest conversations together on the podcast, Mines or Yours, and you were sharing your story. And I remember talking about they wanted you to adhere to that contract. Excuse me. Long before the thought came up to let's have the topic of one of our presentations be just that, negotiating the contract. So amazing energy. Amazing.
I can't even tell you. I mean, the joy that I have after we're done doing our podcast. It probably sounds corny, but I don't care. To be authentic, to be able to say what we really think and how we really feel, and to point out why. And that is not, we're just know-it-alls.
Yeah, no.
We wish we were wrong. If you really you want to break it down,
right?
I wish I was wrong about all of this. I don't want to admit that. Dang, man, we live in a very abusive society on so many levels, under the radar, under the guise, under the titles and labels.
Delusion.
That don't allow us to have clarity. So we look a certain way, rather than being, to be or not to be. Right. Which,
Well, Trish, we're putting in the work. Like you said, you feel so good afterwards. I feel so good. We're therapeutic to each other. And I'm what we're doing, we're gonna have people that are gonna feel the same way. They're gonna be therapeuticized afterwards. And then we're gonna have the people that are gonna be traumatized. But what it does is it's going to set the stage, for the truth to be talked about.
Because if people really got together and they put the word objective on the table, what do you really want? So many of the people would say the same thing. They're just saying it in a different way. The approaches are getting in the way of what we're after. I can't think of anyone that doesn't want to do things better, that doesn't want to improve and evolve. But we cannot do that if we don't get real with ourselves, and then we're able to be real with others, authentic and real, like you said.
Oh, and to do that, right, we're gonna have to go back to find justice, right? We're gonna have to first admit that many of us are on a puppet string, because denial is the first stage.
That part is, difficult. It's why I don't bring up it's why I'm sticking with behavior. Because if you try to speak within politics, religion, beliefs, they get in the way of the behavior, and the behavior creates outcomes. That's why human behavior is key in all of this, because that's really what we're not addressing. We're really not addressing that part. We're talking about politics, we're talking about religion, we're talking about society, socialism, and whatever. That's not going to get the job done. See where that's getting us? All the details are getting in the way of what's at the root, which is behavior, what we do and what we don't do, and the outcomes of those behaviors. I feel very strongly about that.
I'm pro everybody has their niche, their specialty. And I'm a fan of not converting people. What we need to do is just simply agree on a destination, and everybody does their magic to get us there. So I like the fact that you're on the behavior, because those that are, I know we've talked about this, but what I'm really in is on mental health and emotional health, which is the bridge, I think, between the actual behaviors, which is a display, and a source, which could be any number of trillions of things, not just politics and not just this, but it's a whole bunch of shit. But the bridge between the input and the output, the magic of the factory itself is in that mental health and emotional health. And then that's what, so we're, and that's why I guess maybe we realize why we're such a good team, because you're addressing behaviors. I'm addressing the mental and the emotional side, definitely, which is why I like to key in on etymology. So how simple does it sound sometimes when you hear a word and you're like, wait a minute, that's what it meant all this time? You mean tell me I've been acting like this, thinking that, and all this stuff because I thought it meant it could be that simple. So, and there's some bleed over. That's the cool part. But yeah, that's the bridge to that. I think, in my view.
Yes.
So
what's the objective?
Yeah.
The objective is wellness
for
everyone. Wellness for everyone.
Yes.
And do you or do you not want wellness for everyone?
And
if the behavior does not perpetuate wellness, it's time to change and address the behavior.
Renegotiate the contract and stop by the Y Net 7 channel and look at the watch the video with this is for the people. I know you already seen it, but the one with Tamara, Zenobia, and myself. We did a conversation on sound healing and wellness and stuff like that. Cool. So check that out, people. So the bridge, the gap, the emotion, the mental, the manifestation of the physical is the behavior, and there's got to be a root cause. And that's what we're specializing in here, is getting down to the root cause of things in yourself, finding the devil in the details, and renegotiate your contract, people.
Because if in the details, when you address the details, it will be very clear as to whether the outcome is going to be wellness or not. Because the objective has to be wellness for everyone.
And if it's not, we can steer the ship a little bit, correct the course so that we will arrive there instead of way off into dis-ease or disorder.
Yes, the haves and their have-nots. That negates the truth of wellness for everyone. Come on.
Yeah.
Why are some people less deserving?
Right.
Especially wellness and being treated with dignity and kindness.
Especially when they print. I gotta get look, especially when they print the money out of nothing. It literally comes from, that's the part that bugs me out, because if it came from something and it actually meant something, then I could see having to work to get it, and you have, this discrepancy in people's lives, and I'm this way up here, but it comes from nothing. So what's the difference?
It doesn't. It comes from the destruction of trees. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's about it.
People say money doesn't grow on trees, and my friend, maybe it might have been you, somebody said, yeah, it does. It's made of wood. And the destruction of trees, for something that doesn't really have value. If human value isn't on the table,
right?
What are we talking about?
Right. Yeah,
I'm not telling you anything. I'm sorry I get so passionate.
Get it out, Trish. Let it out. Don't hold it in. It's bad if you hold it in.
It bothers me. I've never been able to not see. I've been really having a lot of anxiety about going back to work because I will not be able to be quiet if I see someone being treated poorly. I can't do it. I want to allow it for myself, and I will not stand and watch it being done to somebody else.
You know what? Can't. You know what about that thought, Trish? I'm gonna tell you something. That's one of the reasons why that's one of the aspects that I actually enjoy the most when I do go to work, is because I always find a way to somehow get in control of the situation. And once I do that, I can take responsibility for the well-being of the people, even though they might be totally against me because they don't know or like it or whatever. It's change, right? Yeah. But you give them enough time. So many places I've made the change, I left, and then you get those calls afterwards like, yo, we're so glad you did that. We didn't understand it then, but this happened. We're here. So what I want you to understand, sometimes I speak for myself because it's the best examples I can give, because it's the truth when you can speak from experience. So what I want you to envision is Whoa, did we just talk about the positive and negative of the contract situation? Give yourself the contract to say, instead of saying, I don't want to because I gotta see this and I'm gonna say something, flip it to, I get to say something. I get to go into that place and make the change that's needed. And then I'll leave one day. And then, but you changed the whole world as far as their world there. That's why you need to show up. So wherever it is you're ready to go, if that's the case, or when we go, or people out there, when you go to that place that you're like, man, I really don't want to, that's why you're being called to go. Because it's something in you that you're going to deposit into that environment, and it is going to live forever. Hopefully as a positive change. I know people that's watching this is going to be positive. It's going to be great. You're going to put some magic on them. But we got to at least be there to counterbalance all the negative deposits. And that's what we're here for, Trish. I go through the same anxiety, but you know what? When we get in the door and you see it, you know what needs to be done.
Thank you for that. I hadn't thought about it like that. Yeah, I well, you know, I do believe that everything happens for a reason. I do believe that. I do believe wherever we go, there's opportunity for change, for sure. Absolutely.
It's always the perfect day.
Really great. Yeah. And fear is, you know, I have to stop putting out there fear, what I don't want to as well in my mind. I'm working on that because it's the mind killer. And I do believe it. And when you're fearful, you bring more of what you don't want to. I think you attract it on some levels. So, but that's great. Instead of looking at it like, I don't want, it's like, what can I do with that? Going back to what we were talking about, Eckhart Tolle, always act as though you chose it. What would you do that could possibly, there's a positive element to this. If you get your mind in the right place.
Yep. Go in there, Trish, and say, I wish a motherfucker would. Okay, so any closing remarks for the people?
You know, ask yourself, when you're in a debate, make sure to ask yourself what your objective is. What are you after? What do you really want out of that conversation? People get really lost in the details. They get really bombarded and arguing facts and figures instead of talking about what they want. What is it that you want?
Right.
What's your objective? I think people lose sight of their objective because they get wrapped up in the arguing of the semantics. When if you just ask yourself, what do you want? Just say it. This is what I want. I want a better world. How can we create this? I know what I don't want. I don't want to fight anymore. You know, so that keeps coming back to me. That's the next one that I keep hearing is, you know, what's your objective? And I think that, I mean, there's a band called Styx. They came out with a new record. I might have mentioned them before, but I love it. Their song is Common Ground. What is the common ground here? Let's start from that. What do we all have in common? Well, we're all human, you know, and if we don't start having the collective conversation of how did we get here, not blame this person, how did we as the collective, what do we like this outcome? You know, what are we doing that's creating it? Just the objective, I guess. It's just what are we really after, you know? So, but more than anything, all things aside, I'll go back to what I said. If wellness for everyone isn't on the table, how's that ever going to work? If we're not having the collective conversation of wellness for everyone.
Exactly. I totally agree. And if you're here now still viewing this, thank you so much. Take the time, share it with the people you know need to hear it. I'm gonna summarize as I like what you're saying, Trish. Think about what you want. and then take that to the next level. I've been putting it off for years, but I finally started journaling. And what I want everybody to do is to listen to what Trish just said. If you gotta double tap the screen and rewind the video a few seconds, go ahead and do that. Replay what Trish said. Think about what you want, and then get you a book, a journal, a piece of paper, and write yourself a promissory note. Write yourself the contract, the promise to yourself, and then put it, if it's in a journal, close your journal, do your journal thing, whatever. If it's a piece of paper, fold that up, put it somewhere safekeeping, and make a contract with yourself. Because where we have to start is we have to start with the individual.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm Pasha Paroh and Trish McCabe. Oh, this way, Trish McCabe.
Thank you, Pasha.
Y Net 7. Always a perfect day.